Soft rain had been falling since dusk, wrapping the forest in a hush of mist and silver light. Each droplet traced down broad leaves and slipped quietly into the moss below. In the heart of that forest stood a small cottage, its windows glowing like tiny lanterns against the deep blue evening. Smoke drifted lazily from the chimney, curling into the damp air. Inside, the world was warm and slow. The scent of pine logs mingled with chamomile tea. A woman named Alara sat beside the window, wrapped in a wool blanket, listening to the whisper of rain on glass. Her teacup steamed beside her, and the flame of a single candle swayed gently with each sigh of wind. She loved nights like this, nights that asked nothing of her except stillness. The forest outside seemed alive yet peaceful, the rhythmic patter of drops, the distant hoot of an owl, the soft creak of trees. Time slowed until it felt like breathing itself. Alara turned a page in the worn book on her lap. She had read this story a dozen times, but tonight she read slower, letting each line drift like a leaf on water. The candlelight shimmered over the words, turning them into waves of gold. Outside, mist drifted between the trunks, weaving pale ribbons through the rain. The forest exhaled, the cottage breathed with it. Alara smiled faintly and closed her book, listening to the rain's quiet song. She rose and crossed to the hearth. Embers glowed like tiny stars. She placed another log on the fire. Sparks fluttered upward, vanishing into the chimney's dark throat. The new wood caught slowly, releasing that gentle, resinous scent she loved. For a while, she simply knelt there, hands outstretched to the warmth, watching the flames bend and dance. "Thank you," she whispered, to the fire, to the rain, perhaps to the quiet itself. Outside, the downpour softened to a drizzle, and the night deepened. Alara settled back in her chair, eyes half closed, heart slow and steady. The forest, the fire, and the rain became one gentle rhythm. The hours slipped by like quiet water. Outside, the rain softened until it was no more than a memory on the leaves. The forest held its breath, content in its stillness. A single droplet slid from the edge of the roof and landed with a soft pat on the window ledge. Alara watched the tiny ripple fade. She felt the same calm spreading through her thoughts. In this quiet hour, her mind wandered to the paths beyond the trees, the ones she used to walk when the world felt too heavy. She remembered the hum of the city, the distant voices, the rush of footsteps. Then she thought of this place, her chosen solitude, and smiled. A gust of wind brushed the cottage walls, setting the branches to whisper. The sound was not lonely but alive, as if the forest were speaking in a language older than words. She leaned back, letting it wash through her, gentle as breath. On the small table beside her lay a notebook, its cover worn smooth. She opened it slowly and began to write, not stories, not plans, just thoughts drifting like smoke. Words of gratitude, small memories, the shapes of dreams she had not yet named. The pen moved lazily, unhurried, matching the rhythm of the night. She paused to listen again. Somewhere far away, a stream murmured softly, weaving through roots and stone. The scent of damp earth drifted in through the open window, mingling with the fading smoke of the fire. It smelled of renewal, of life still turning quietly beneath the soil. Alara closed the notebook and rested her palm over it, as though to seal the thoughts within. She drew her blanket closer and gazed out into the darkness, where the mist had thinned and moonlight now touched the treetops. Tiny glimmers of silver clung to the branches like stars caught in the wood. She could almost believe the forest was dreaming alongside her. The clock ticked softly, marking time that no longer mattered. In the rhythm of its hands she heard her own heartbeat, slow, steady, present. A sense of peace settled deep within her chest, gentle and sure. The night had gathered her completely. The fire had burned low, glowing like a handful of quiet suns beneath their ash blanket. Alara rose and stirred it with the iron poker. Sparks lifted, then settled again, sighing back to rest. The air in the cottage shimmered faintly with warmth. She poured the last of her tea, its steam ghosting upward to meet the dim light. Beyond the window, clouds shifted and the moon drifted free. A soft silver path stretched across the clearing, glinting on puddles and wet bark. The forest seemed to lean closer, listening to its own heartbeat. The faint rustle of wings passed overhead, an owl sweeping silently between the pines. The sound made Alara smile. Everything here had its place, its moment, its gentle reason. She wrapped the blanket more tightly around her shoulders and stepped to the door. When she opened it, the scent of wet pine filled the room. Cool air brushed her cheeks, carrying the delicate perfume of moss and rain. The forest glowed faintly under moonlight, as though washed clean. She stepped onto the porch. Drops of water glimmered on the railing like strings of tiny pearls. Mist hovered close to the ground, moving in slow ribbons between roots and ferns. The quiet was absolute, so deep it felt alive. Alara listened until she could hear her own breath mingling with the sighs of the trees. Each inhale carried the cool sweetness of the night, each exhale gave something back. She felt her body grow lighter, as though the forest had taken some invisible weight from her. A streak of faint light touched the horizon, the first whisper of dawn. She lingered there, watching it widen behind the branches. The deep blue of the sky began to soften into gray, and the stars retreated, their work done for the night. The cottage behind her seemed to hum gently with the same calm energy. She turned back inside, closing the door softly so as not to wake the dawn. The fire offered one last crackle, as if bidding her good night. She smiled at the thought, laid another small log upon the embers, and watched the glow rise again. The rhythm of the flames matched her breathing, slow, even, content. Outside, the forest waited for morning. Inside, the cottage glowed like a lantern of rest. The first birds began to stir, their songs soft and hesitant, as if testing the morning air. A single note, then another, fragile threads weaving through the mist. The rain had gone, leaving only the hush of dripping leaves and the scent of clean earth. Alara watched a beam of early light slide across the wooden floor, painting the edges of her chair in gold. She had not meant to stay awake all night, yet her body felt rested, her mind quiet. The kind of peace that came not from sleep but from stillness. The kettle on the stove murmured faintly, ready for another cup of tea. She filled it with fresh water from the jug and set it back over the flame. As she waited, she stepped once more to the window. The forest had changed color. The deep blue shadows of night now gave way to gentle greens and silver fog. The creek beyond the trees sparkled with new light, winding like a ribbon through the moss. Every surface shimmered with tiny droplets, each one holding a fragment of the waking sky. She opened the window wider, letting the cool air drift in. It brushed against her face like a greeting. Somewhere nearby, a deer stepped softly between the ferns, its movement soundless, its presence calm. The world was alive again, but quietly, like a dream continuing in daylight. The kettle whistled gently, and Alara poured the hot water over a spoonful of dried herbs. Steam rose and caught the light, swirling upward in slow silver curls. She sat by the window and watched the morning unfold. Each sip tasted of warmth and earth and the promise of another gentle day. Outside, the mist began to lift, revealing the quiet paths she had walked so many times before. They led nowhere in particular, just winding trails through the trees, but she loved them for that. The forest did not ask her to hurry, it only asked her to listen. And she did, letting each sound fill her, the flutter of wings, the drop of water, the faint rustle of life returning. She thought of how every night here ended like this, softly, with gratitude. The forest never rushed its mornings, neither did she. She set her cup down, feeling the warmth fade from her hands, replaced by the gentle coolness of the day. She whispered quietly, a habit she had come to love. "Thank you," she said, to the rain, to the forest, to the quiet. And perhaps to the night itself, for its company. The light grew stronger, painting the mist in gold. A small bird landed on the railing outside, shook its wings, and began to sing. Alara smiled, drew the blanket closer, and leaned back in her chair. The day would unfold gently, just as the night had done. Her eyes grew heavy at last, lulled by the soft rhythm of morning. She let them close, breathing in the clean, bright air of the new day. The forest outside shimmered quietly, alive and endless, carrying her into a peaceful drift. Thank you for listening. May your dreams be calm and your night peaceful.